Why, hello everybody. It's been a while, but welcome back to Simming and Self-Care. Today we are building a room, a therapist's office. And there's a little bit of a story that goes along with it, which also might have explained why I haven't been around very much. There's actually a lot of little things, but I will start from the beginning. As I told you previously, the job I was doing, how it was making me feel. So then I ended up having a panic attack, breakdown, however you want to call it. And that was about the third one that I've had since I started this job 7 months ago. And this one, normally it takes me about a day to bounce back after it's happened, but this one took me 3 days, or 2.5. So about 2.5 days of uncontrollable crying, not being able to console myself, get my shit together. And so then I really had to stop and think about what I wanted to do for myself and what that might look like moving forward, because clearly as time has been going on, this job was just becoming more and more unsustainable for me. So I decided to quit. I sat down with my manager and the district manager and we organized what my exit strategy was going to be like. We went over all the options. I decided it just wasn't worth it for me to continue on in a job that was so severely impacting my mental health. Before I had officially made that decision, one of the good things that the organization offered was a support line that would refer you to counseling services, to therapy. So I called them up. They arranged a therapist for me to go and see, and I was given 7 sessions with them. In fact, I'm still continuing the sessions because even though I left the organization, they paid for 7 sessions for me. So luckily, I'm able to complete all 7 of them. And it's been interesting because the only therapeutic intervention that I've been involved with have been very structured, like CBT outpatient courses where, there's a clear beginning, middle, and end. It's all following a similar pattern. You learn all these different skills, blah, blah, blah. But traditional talk therapy, I had never tried before. This therapy room is partially inspired by the office of the therapist that I'm currently seeing. Dark tones, wood, there's a grandfather clock. His is always stuck on 9 o'clock for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's just there for aesthetic reasons, not there to actually tell the time because the noise might disrupt the therapy. Who knows? But anyway, that's what sort of inspired this video today because I was foraying into talk therapy for the first time. And it's been really interesting. The person that I'm going to, it's very much listen to me rant on about this, that, and the other. And then he pauses for a bit. We only have hour-long sessions and slightly grinds my gears because I'll be like, blah, 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 blah. And then he'll just sit there and then go, and then say what he needs to say. And I talk a mile a minute. So if I talk a mile a minute and then you sit and pause and speak very deliberately, I don't know how I feel about that. But it's actually really good because it's a third-party perspective that provides some insight into the situation. Obviously, some people talk to their friends, their family about what's going on with them. Those people, if they give a crap about you, which is why you're talking to them in the first place, they might have a biased account of the situation that you're in. So sometimes it's helpful to go to somebody who is trained in listening and empathizing and understanding what's going on with somebody and being able to offer impartial advice and ways to look at things a little bit differently. Yeah, so it's been really interesting so far. On my very first therapy session, the therapist and I were talking about why I was there, and I was talking about anxiety and stress and things like that. And then he sat there and he was like, so, I've been in the business, a therapist for however many years, and I'll let you in on like a secret or like a belief that I have. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, what's this? He goes, I don't think anxiety exists. And I was like, in my brain, I was like, sir, I don't know if we're going to be able to work together because that's literally what I'm here for. But okay, continue. And he's like, I don't believe in anxiety because I believe it stems from a different emotion, which is fear. So anxiety stems from fear, and therefore anxiety doesn't exist because it's actually fear. In my brain, I'm like, okay, so we're just having like a semantic discussion. So you just believe that the word anxiety is made up and that everything is based off of fear. But obviously what I'm experiencing and the emotions and the symptoms and all that stuff is the same regardless of whether we call it fear or anxiety. But I just thought that was really funny because for a split second I was like, oh hell no. And then he explained himself and I was like, okay, I get you. One of the first first things I needed to do was create myself a pie chart of the main fears or main anxiety inducers that I feel trigger me, if you will. And so I did that, and we started going over them and discussing them. And it was very interesting because these are things I've kind of known about myself for a little while, but seeing how they also intersect or stemming from this particular thing or thought or emotion or whatever. So that's been really cool, but it's not as, I don't know, like it's always difficult when you are trying to work on yourself and to better yourself, because in this situation with the therapy thing, there's no sort of right or wrong answer. There's suggestions that you sit and ponder over, and you might come up with your own enlightenment or whatever. But sometimes, at least a couple sessions that I've been to recently, it almost provides you with an opportunity to actually sit and think about the difficult stuff where, you know, you might not have had a chance to because you're busy living your chaotic life. So when you have an hour to actually sit there, I sometimes find like maybe I'm digging into things too much, or I'm like hyper analyzing my own situation, because sometimes I end up feeling a little bit more overwhelmed or a little bit more like, holy crap, there's a lot more going on in my brain than me just idly going through the day will make that out to be. And that could just be me trying to fill the space, to fill the time when the therapist has paused in talking, and I feel the need to make justifications for how I'm feeling or different things like that. So yeah, that's been a weird part, maybe a not as pleasant part. Like, I'm very open about the fact that I've been going to counseling, and people will be like, oh, like, how did the session go and whatever. And I'm kind of like, don't necessarily feel better from it. Sometimes it just gives you food for thought to carry with you and think about, which you might not have had that piece of information previously, but that's not always a good thing, I guess. But working on yourself and thinking about ways to change and better yourself is hard work. And so you're not always going to leave feeling refreshed and energized. You're going to feel probably tired, because having to search deep inside yourself and be introspective takes a lot of work. There's been some standout moments, though, that I've actually thoroughly taken and run with. Most specifically because now that I've quit my job, I don't quite know what I want to do next. And I was explaining to the therapist how I have all these interests, and I'll be sitting in a room, like I have access to all of my hobbies and all of my interests right in front of me, and I can't choose one to do. I almost get like paralyzed by all the choices that I have. And he was saying how that can happen, how you can have all of these options and all of these choices, and then just the sheer stress, I guess, of trying to figure out exactly what you're trying to accomplish or what you want to achieve, you almost get like a motivation burnout from that, and then you just sit and don't do anything, which I really related to, and I'm trying really hard to be conscious of that and make sure that I'm not doing that, like not getting that motivational burnout, whether it's giving myself a list of tasks to accomplish for the day and stuff like that, as opposed to just kind of sitting aimlessly being like, what do I want to do today? And then actually not doing anything because I'm too busy thinking about it. It's like, you know, when you're sitting on Netflix and you want to watch something and there's so many options and you just spend 2 hours scrolling through all the Netflix choices that you don't even end up watching a movie and just end up going to bed because it's like 11 o'clock now and you need to get up for whatever reason the next day. It's like that, but with tangible items within your home. Another really cool thing that I am running with, I might completely rebrand myself in this sort of philosophy or thing. Because in the same vein of talking about all the different interests that I was into, I'm also very unsure or uncertain about potential career options, what I want to do next, and how I find when I was working or when I do work, it's like one facet of my overall personality. And I feel very like I'm unable to fully utilize and express all of my talents and interests within one job role because it's limiting, or I feel like I'm only exercising one part of my personality and I have all these other bits to offer, but no job really encapsulates all of those things. So of course I was explaining this, and Mr. Therapist, who by the way looks a little bit like Sigmund Freud. I might have to create a little Sigmund to stick in this little therapy office. We don't do the whole me lying down, him sitting, no regression, no penis envy, no everything's my mother's fault. None of that kind of stuff, but he still reminds me of Freud, which amuses me greatly. But anyway, so he kind of sat there in his little silence after I had rambled for 10 minutes straight, as I do. And then he said, "It seems like you have a lot of eclectic tastes." I was like, yeah, fair enough. So when you have eclectic tastes, it becomes very difficult to then marry those different eclectic hobbies and interests into something sustainable or substantial that kind of encapsulates a lot of them. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. I feel like the different things I'm interested in don't all have a common thread, so it's very difficult to find something that has a lot of those elements because they don't seem to relate in any way. And then he said something which I was like, boom, this is incredible. I'm running with this. He's like, "You remind me like a butterfly." And I was like, okay. He's like, "You know how butterflies will float and then sort of perch somewhere else, and they don't stick around for long, and then they float away and then perch somewhere else and don't stick around for long." And he's like, "You kind of float like a butterfly between all of your different interests and never settle for too long, which is why you're struggling with trying to find something that unifies everything." And I was like, oh my goodness, sir, you have just hit the nail right on the head. And you better believe I went around telling everyone I was an eclectic butterfly that day. It was beautiful. So that's sort of been my experience with therapy thus far. It's been an interesting ride, and I have a couple more sessions, but that's why I haven't been around as frequently, because I was going through some stuff, I was having some breakdowns, really sort of down on myself, upset. And of course, when that happens, you do lose motivation and you have that sense of lethargy and stuff like that. So that's what I was going through. So I'm hoping now that I'm not working, I have some more time on my hands. Maybe I'll find more motivation to post more frequently, but I have this eclectic butterfly situation going on. So who knows? Maybe I'll do something completely different. Maybe I'll post more. Who knows? But we'll see. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you appreciated the little therapy office build that I did. Maybe I'll make some videos where we actually utilize it. I'll make myself a little Freud and I'll stick them in there, and we'll see if we can't get down to the bottom of some of our Sims' deepest wants and needs and fears and insecurities. Other than that, thanks for listening and have a good day. Bye-bye.